Hello, everyone. My name is Daryl Harris. I'm with Johns Hopkins Center for Livable Future. I want to welcome you to our Neighborhoods Partnership Roundtable. And so this session is designed to work to invite food policy councils and allied organizations to learn about programs, technical assistance, and funding opportunities at the USDA, and also to share feedback on needs and challenges related to these programs. We hope it will be very informative. Our first person that we have to talk with you today is Alex Córdova. He's the program lead for the Center for Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships. He's out of the Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement at the USDA. And so Alex, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Daryl, and thanks to the Center for Livable Future team. We really appreciate the partnership and are excited to grow this. And I would be remiss to not thank Daryl for his participation in an event that we hosted for many of our faith-based partners last year on community food systems, which was really just a great meeting, and we really appreciated having your experience and your insight and your wisdom as a part of that. My name is Alex Córdova. I'm a community development specialist at USDA's Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement. I'm also the program lead for the Center for Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships at USDA. And we essentially serve as an advocate and a champion for faith-based organizations and community-based organizations when they do business with USDA. So trying to connect folks to resources, technical assistance, other capacity building activities such as workshops or stakeholder engagement meetings such as this, where we like to come together and hear your challenges and needs, but also provide some information about incoming programs or opportunities that are open that might be really practical to your work. So today, we really would love to hear from you all, and then we have some of our USDA colleagues that'll join us and provide info about some programs. And really, also just want to thank you all for the work that you've been doing on the ground in communities and your communities over the past years, especially since the pandemic started as it relates to food insecurity. So without further ado, I will turn it over to the Director of the Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement, Dr. Lisa Ramírez.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. So, hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Ramírez. As Alex mentioned, I'm the Director of USDA's Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement. Thank you for taking the time and making the time to join us today. For those of you who don't know about OPPE, I do want to just share a little bit about what we do. OPPE serves as the lead agent for USDA partnership and outreach activities, with tasking and reporting authority to direct, coordinate, and control all of the target programs. And those programs include all of the components that used to be in the Office of Advocacy and Outreach, including outreach for socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers and veteran farmers and ranchers. Many of you may know that as the 2501 program. We also have our work with different partnerships, such as with the 1890 land grant universities, the Hispanic serving institutions, and the 1994 tribal colleges. Our office also houses the agricultural youth programs and thinking about how we can continue to engage our youth in thinking about agricultural careers. We have the Military Veterans Agricultural Liaison and Supporting Veterans Program Initiative. And as you know, for today, we have the Center for Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, who is hosting this part today. We have the Farm Worker Coordination, Women in Agriculture, Asian American and Pacific and Hawaiian Islander Outreach, as well as 2 advisory committees. We house the Advisory Committee on Minority Farmers and the Advisory Committee for Beginning Farmers. One of the unique things about OPPE is that in addition to all of those pieces, we have this wonderful opportunity to be able to work on any of the additional priorities or programs that Secretary Vilsack deems essential to serve the interests of USDA. And that includes the diversity, equity, inclusion, nutrition security, supply chain resilience, and climate smart agriculture and forestry. OPPE is an essential component of USDA's outreach and capacity building strategy as we work very hard to develop public and private partnerships to ensure that the communities and the community-based organizations receive their much needed support to accomplish their respective missions. OPPE is able to do this by conducting outreach and developing these partnerships with private sectors, also within our agency and with other federal partners to amplify the agency's initiatives and to be able to connect the communities to USDA resources. Here at the Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement, please know that we value data, we value people, and we believe in building leaders. We are aligning our efforts to deliver improved nutrition for the most vulnerable and empower youth and women for greater inclusivity, address the food production and climate change nexus, and step up investments in agriculture innovation and rural infrastructure to improve the sustainability and resilience of food systems. The USDA is committed to supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion both within the department and externally, and working always towards advancing the administration and USDA's goals of equity and justice, and working in partnership to make sure that all of our underserved groups and individuals are able to access USDA programs and services. As you know, poor nutrition and its impact on diet-related diseases are unequally distributed, with often significant disparities among income groups and among racial and ethnic lines. And we absolutely must strengthen the capacity of all participants throughout the food and agricultural systems, and paying special attention to women, the extreme poor, small scale producers, family farmers, youth, marginalized communities, and small and medium-sized enterprises. Agricultural systems that are not economically viable and inclusive are not sustainable. The programs we're discussing today are essential to supporting this community-based approach and thinking about all of our community-based organizations and how they conduct outreach on USDA programs, and thinking of the training and transitioning for our farmers and increasing the capacity of our organizations and developing those leaders to be able to address the challenges that they're facing within their communities. We are so proud to see that organizations and initiatives like the Food Policy Networks Project and the Center for the Livable Future are leading the way in exploring and addressing the root causes of nutrition insecurity. Governments, as well as the private sector, should help make healthy diets easily accessible for everyone. The healthy choice should be an easy choice for everyone and everywhere, with special attention to children and members of marginalized communities. Reversing the trends in the growth of unhealthy diets and obesity will require a broad range of innovative policies and actions, including those focused on incentivizing consumers to adopt healthier diets and for producers to develop, market, and supply affordable products that enable and encourage these healthy choices. So while USDA plays a large role in supporting the agricultural sector in the United States, the truth is we can't do it alone. And what we must do, we absolutely must do together in partnership. We must promote the multi-stakeholder approach to food systems, and where different stakeholders, including the governments, multilateral institutions, development banks, the private sectors, and civil society are working together to build this economic sustainability. USDA supports partnerships and collaborations that will lead to an enabling environment of increased transparency, predictable policies, improved program efficacy, and robust information systems, which are needed to instill the confidence in our food systems and markets. So like the Food Policy Network Initiative, we believe that transforming our food system and developing resilience capacity is a continuous process of learning and adapting that must be carried out by numerous players within a food system, including the producers, the private sector, the government, consumers, and civil society, as I mentioned earlier. It is so essential that we partner with our community and that we really think through the technical assistance and making sure that it's accessible and supporting our communities that need it the most. We have to receive our feedback and make sure that we're addressing the challenges and barriers that are faced in the field and collaborate on monitoring and evaluating to ensure that the impacts are being appropriately assessed and that benefits are equitably distributed. I know that there's so much to learn from today's session, and I am looking forward to learning along with you. And if ever we can be of service to you, please do reach out to us. Thank you again for joining us. And at this time, I'm actually going to pass it back over to Alex, who will do some further introductions before we open our discussion. Thank you.
Thank
Alex?
you, Dr. Ramírez, for your leadership. I really appreciate your remarks and taking the time to join us today. And I'm just going to turn it back over to Dr. Harris to lead us in a discussion about input from some food policy councils. Daryl?
Yes, we are going to have some people from the USDA come and talk to us about some various programs. But before we do that, we wanted to give an opportunity for people from the audience to ask questions about their experiences or any looming things that they have as it regards to partnering with the USDA in some fashion. I want to start us off by asking Kimberly Pettigrew to ask a question. And for any other groups that have questions, you can press on the raised hand and then we'll call on you.
Hi, Daryl. Thank you for the introduction and thanks for hosting this. I'm Kimberly Pettigrew. I'm the Director of Food Security Systems at the United Way of Greater Knoxville. I've been a longtime member of the Knox County Food Policy Council and including leading the council during the pandemic. We are actually celebrating 40 years this year, and we are the first food policy council in the nation. And I have just a couple of questions that might be relevant to a lot of food policy councils in barriers to accessing funding. So our structure is advisory in nature, and we are embedded in the city and county government. So we don't have staff, we don't have a budget, and we don't really have that backbone capacity to support to be able to apply for funding opportunities through programs through the USDA. We have some unique solutions, hence my position at the United Way of trying to offer a hybrid structure that is able to kind of meet those solutions. But I just wondered what things you'd recommend to food policy councils who do have municipal structures with little staff support. And I also wanted to just make known another barrier for our council and for a lot of our other smaller grassroots organizations is really the requirement for multi-year match support. In my experience here in Tennessee, local foundations and our local government are really not willing to offer those multi-year match support that's often required in many of the USDA grants. I know not all of them. And then challenges here in the South are really compounded because we tend to go for smaller government, meaning we shop out a lot of our social services, rather than having them embedded within our city and county governments. And so it's just a comment as much as it is a question about some of the barriers that we face here in Knoxville.
Yeah, those are really great questions. And I might just offer a couple of remarks here and then see if any of my colleagues on the phone would like to answer them. In regards to the municipal structure there in Tennessee and your comments just there on, county versus municipal government, that is something that we've been hearing and seeing a lot and generally do just across the country, just in the variation, right, in the different places in terms of governance. I'll give you just a brief example. I'm just working a lot in the Northeast, for example, many multi-sectoral approaches to government and governance happening right at the state level. A lot of state agencies working together around hunger and food and nutrition and security, whereas, as you mentioned, maybe in Tennessee or some other places in the South, we might see less of that. I think that is definitely mirrored in the local government space in terms of municipalities, right? And like you said, shop out services, right, to other contractors or service providers that might be able to do that in what is perceived, I guess, in a more efficient way, right? I'm sure there's some efficiencies there. But those challenges on governance are definitely there too. And honestly, look towards this network here for some of those best practices and innovations on how to navigate some of those nuances. In regards to the funding question, again, that is something that we encounter quite a bit with our faith and community-based organizations. That is one of the reasons we really want to kind of grow and strengthen this partnership with you all, is because we know that many food policy councils are working with faith-based organizations and houses of worship as they provide services and do work. They also face that issue as well, right, in terms of incorporation status and how to leverage some of these larger grants from USDA. It's not perfect. We know that many of our programs are competitive, but working together, forming collective impact groups like food policy councils is one way for sure. And hearing you on that municipal piece, many of the food policy councils that I've worked with that do not have 501c3 incorporation status, are actively trying to become a part of local government so that they receive municipal support, or are trying to get written into as many proposals as possible with their local collaborators. Bill, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Today is Wednesday, and it's Wednesday webinar day. We are filled with webinars left and right, and there is one going on right now that kind of fits the question that was asked about matching funds. So we have an equity commission that is looking at all of the policies that are going on in USDA where there may have been some discrimination or fairness throughout all our policies. And it's ironic that probably less than an hour and a half ago, that question actually came up to say there are numerous organizations that they just don't have the money. And exactly what the person who asked the question says, we don't have a budget. So how can we do any matching funds? So I would just say, keep your ear to the ground. You can actually go and see what the Equity Commission is actually doing. It's on the USDA website. I think it's usda.gov/Equity Commission, but I'll verify that and I'll put it in the chat for everyone. But those things are actually being looked at today. I'm not going to say we're going to have an answer tomorrow. They're working on different things, but that was one of the things that came up, that there are communities that don't have budgets and cannot afford to do that matching fund. So I just wanted to add that there, Alex. Thank you.
Well, thank you both, Alex and Bill, for your responses. I wanted to give a chance for Virginia Pleasant to ask a question.
Sure. Thank you. Virginia Pleasant. I'm with the Northwest Indiana Food Council, and we are very grateful to have recently received a Regional Food Systems Partnership Grant that was awarded late in 2021. And so I just wanted to give a little bit of context about our project and some of our experience as we sort of navigate this space of leading on a USDA grant for the first time. We were previously partnered on an LFPP and an FMPP, so we thought we had a good handle on how things might go, but we've learned a lot in these early months after being lead on the grant. So our Regional Food Systems Partnership Grant includes 10 partners around the state, as well as a technical assistance partner that is outside of the state. We are looking to expand, or we will be expanding our Indiana value chain network, which includes value chain professionals from multiple stakeholders, ranging from private business to several nonprofit, more grassroots organizations. So we'll be going from 4 VCPs to 9 by the end of this grant, including a BIPOC coordinator that will be focused on the needs of BIPOC producers and food businesses. What we learned through the LFPP grant that we were on originally is that underserved communities in particular, they need extra attention, and they need committed, devoted attention to their specific challenges and barriers that they face. So we're hoping to address some of that by implementing this statewide position. We'll also be forming a statewide food and farming organization for the first time. Indiana has never had one. A local food buyer network in partnership with our State Department of Agriculture, and hosting some community workshops to get some feedback as we work towards developing a community food charter for the state of Indiana. So all of that being said, a lot of really fantastic things that we are really excited to be working on and that we think will work towards transformative change in the food systems in our state. It has been challenging as a grassroots organization to go from partnering on a USDA grant to leading on a USDA grant. And some of the things that we've seen that we think could really help support smaller organizations as they go through this process. First, to have stronger support for grassroots organizations. And I think you all are trying to do that by having these roundtables and listening to the challenges. But being really clear about what is expected of an organization if they are awarded as they're going through that process. So things like financial controls and reporting expectations, best practices for grants management, guidance on what may change as far as allowable advocacy for food policy councils if they're awarded. All of this, it would be really helpful to have, workshops or documents that sort of really lay it all out. If you are awarded after you go through this process, you're going to need to be ready to do all of these things in pretty quick order after the award. And to the point of funding, I think being really clear that being awarded doesn't mean that the money is going to start flowing the next week. It can be a few months for things to get rolling, and for limited capacity organizations, that can be a challenge. We're really fortunate to have really committed partners that have been able to work with us on this, and we have a lot of mentorship in these spaces, but I'm certain that that is not the case for every grassroots organization. And so we just want to be really clear that it's a gap and a need that we have seen. And to that point, just really being clear and proactive in communication in the startup process after award would be really helpful as well. We know that there's been a lot of changes at the USDA with the financial reporting systems and other sort of software that's being used that has held things up. So our situation may be a little bit unique there, but there were definitely moments in the months following the award that we were like, what are we supposed to be doing right now? Like, we're just waiting on another email and we're not really sure what we can be doing right now. So thank you.
I'm not sure if somebody from USDA wants to respond to that.
Yeah, I can briefly just mention that's all really good feedback. And I'm assuming you all kind of graduated from the FMPP, LFPP, right, the RFSP. So that is good to know. That is kind of the intent and the goal of having it structured that way, so that's really neat to see. But those are really good points of feedback, especially, from being kind of a sub to a prime for the first time, especially on a big project like that, because it is a little more scaled. We are hearing some of these comments again too from other stakeholders just around capacity constraints. Your comments about financial controls and best practices for like grants management and awards management, again, is something that has come up on that equity commission call and on other calls. We do have some efforts on the way to do those things with community-based organizations coming. There was the Section 1006 Technical Assistance Initiative. I'm not sure if folks are familiar with that. Won't dive into the details, but the idea being that we would work with cooperators to provide technical assistance to CBOs on some of those topics, as well as others on related to farming and ranching. Bill, I don't know, or Kenya, if you would like to add anything to that.
Well, I'll jump in there. The points you bring up are very valid, and this feedback is really great because what we're finding, one of the things that Secretary Vilsack and as Alex mentioned in 1006 is we are reaching out. outreach into different communities, farmers, whatever it may be, to find out what is it that you really need. You know, our flagship within the Office of Partnership and Public Engagement is the 2501 program. And Kenya will probably talk to that a little later, but I just want to tell you, we know there that we have webinars on, once we announce it, that it's going to be out there. We have webinars on the best practices, how to apply for the grant. And that's what people need. I mean, not everybody is a born grant writer, and it's very difficult. You know, sometimes people are hiring grant writers just to write the grant for them. And so we're trying to find out, one, what is the barrier? You know, is the application too long? Is there stuff in there that's really not necessary? So we have people looking at all that type of stuff. And we also have people looking at, you know, how can we help you with that? The other thing is you'll find that the majority of our grants are written in English. Guess what? Not all our customers speak English. So we're finding these type of things out. And that's one of the things. One of the biggest things that Secretary Vilsack is talking is build back the trust of the American people. We are the department, the People's Department. You know, it says Department of Agriculture, but when Lincoln started this thing, it was the People's Department. So we're really trying our best to get out there, find out what the barriers are, try to cut some of those barriers out and make it easier for, you know, a smaller business, you know, small farmers, or whomever it may be, a small community. Like I said earlier, some communities, they don't have anybody who's budget, they don't have any money. That's why they're coming to us. We're a resource for people. So that's what I just wanted to add there, Alex. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
And Alex, I will add to that. The 2501 program is our flagship outreach program. And part of the requirements that's listed in the Farm Bill is that we garner our stakeholder feedback. So we are very proud to say that we're always open to feedback, how we can better serve our stakeholders. We have webinars. I entered a link in the chat where those webinars kind of guide our stakeholders and any applicants through the application process, because there's a lot of nonprofits out there that depend on these funds to survive. Some of their communities depend on some of these USDA's programs just to feed their kids. So it's very important that we're there to serve those community needs. And we really focus a lot on the technical assistance piece. And we have a lot of technical assistance initiatives that are coming out to make sure that you know how to use the programs and more so apply them to your individual farming operations or nonprofits, how they can better serve their community. So feel free to look at the link, and I'm going to go over the 2501 program, which is the technical or official title of the program is Outreach and Assistance for Socially Disadvantaged and Veteran Farmers and Ranchers. And I'm happy to answer any questions during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Okay, so I'm going to pass it over now to Alex to lead us through the funding and engagement opportunities. But if you have further questions about the experience, please put them in the chat, and then perhaps we can they can be incorporated into some of the responses, or we can try to get you an answer at a later date. All right, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. We can definitely do that. So appreciate you all sharing that information and feedback with us. And now we will get to some of these program opportunities. So I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Mallory Koenings. She's going to talk about the Schumacher Nutrition Incentive Program. Mallory?
Thank you very much. And I appreciate the invitation to be here today and share with you the currently open 2 funding opportunities that we have in 2022 with the Schumacher Nutrition Incentive Program. So this program builds off of over 10 years of pilot data and collaborations between the National Institute of Food and Agriculture that I'm with and the Food and Nutrition Service that leads and implements two of the food assistance programs that our nutrition incentive program can leverage. And the nutrition incentive program itself really focuses on increasing the purchase of fruits and vegetables. And the population that it's focused on are participants in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program in the 50 states, District of Columbia, Guam, and the US Virgin Islands, as well as participants in the Nutrition Assistance Program block grants to Puerto Rico, American Samoa, and the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas Islands. So those are the two nutrition assistance programs, right, operated by the Food and Nutrition Service that NIFA collaborates with on these nutrition incentive projects. This year, there's about $34 million available to support nutrition incentive project proposals. I've included the link to the funding opportunity page in the chat, and that funding opportunity page also includes at the bottom the relevant links where you can find the links to frequently asked questions, the links to request for applications webinars, and links to what we call the RFA resources pages that goes through lots of detailed information that we've been told is very helpful to have for potential applicants. The second program within the GusNIP portfolio is the GusNIP Produce Prescription Program. And this is a program that, as the title implies, right, provides a prescription, right, from a healthcare partner for produce, right, for fresh fruits and vegetables. And the intended audience here are individuals who are either currently managing a diet-related chronic disease or who are at risk of developing a diet-related chronic disease. And then they would also be income eligible through being enrolled in medical assistance, right, such as Medicaid or CHIP, or by being eligible for supplemental nutrition assistance. This produce prescription program, like I said, the RFA is also open. There's about $5 million available this year in support of those grants. And then the third area of the portfolio that I want to make sure I mention is what we call the Nutrition Incentive Program Training, Technical Assistance, Evaluation, and Information Centers. This is a cooperative agreement. It's competed every 4 years. And I mention it specifically because one of the charges, right, of this grantee is to provide great resources, support, technical assistance to potential applicants, right? So this group is also funded by USDA to provide those supports to anyone interested in applying to a nutrition incentive project or a produce prescription project, as well as to really aggregate the comprehensive evaluation data there are baseline expectations, right? Core measures for what we call the firms, which are the food outlets or clinics, and the participants. So I'm happy to answer additional questions and do so live or offline as needed. And thank you very much for the opportunity to share these funding mechanisms with you all today.
Thank you, Mallory. And if folks have any just quick questions, I guess please feel free to raise your hand and come off mute. We can move on to the next person. See one there in the chat. Folks are wondering if we can share your contact info, Mallory. And we used to have a way to track local and regional food system investments across the country. We had the local foods compass map. Some folks might be familiar with that. I think that is offline right now. That probably would be the best way to track those projects in Southern Nevada, but let me see if we can figure out another way and I'll get back to you.
Yep, I'm going to go ahead and respond to both of those in the chat.
All right, fantastic. Well then, thank you again for taking the time to join us here. I know those are two really important programs. I'm going to turn it over to Joe Heller, who's a natural resources specialist at the Natural Resources Conservation Service, to talk about a really exciting opportunity that they have coming soon. Joe, are you there? We can't hear you. I think he might be having some technical difficulties. He's on the road, but we'll just turn it over to Jenna from the Farm Service Agency, who's also the National Urban Agriculture Lead there, to talk about some of her work.
Thanks so much, Alex. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Maybe Alex give me a thumbs up if I sound okay. Great, fabulous. So I do have some slides, but I know because we're short on time, I think I don't have to share them, but I just wanted to tell you all about what Farm Service Agency has for urban producers. I know that you all do a lot of great work in urban areas and wanted to highlight what we are doing for urban farmers and how we're really growing our presence across the country. So as you all know, there are many USDA offices and there's lots of acronyms. So for those of you not familiar with the Farm Service Agency, or FSA, we really work to help America's farmers, ranchers, and landowners make investments or improvements to their agricultural operations. We do that through a variety of programs, but primarily through disaster assistance, farm loans, and safety net and conservation programs. So what FSA is doing is we've actually partnered with the Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production, and they'll be talking a little bit about their work on urban ag as a whole, but we're really working to establish a presence in urban areas. And we have established an urban county committee pilot. Currently, we are in 11 cities across the country, and we are working with NRCS to establish urban service centers so that farmers who maybe not have participated with USDA before, who are in urban areas starting to establish their farms or grow their farms, can come to our urban offices, our service centers, obtain a farm number, potentially apply to different farm loans that can help them at their beginning farmer really get access to USDA services and grow their programs and really assist them in kind of navigating that whole process. So I know that you all don't have an urban county committee pilot, but wanted to tell you about where those are located across the country. Let me just make sure I have the list there. But basically the way that FSA is structured is we're really unique because we do have a physical on the ground presence across the country. We have county offices and state offices, and in those county locations, we also have county committees, and those are they're created by made of farmers who are nominated and elected to serve in those roles, and they're really a connection for our USDA to the on-the-ground needs of agricultural producers. Members, like I kind of mentioned, are voted into those roles and really have the opportunity to represent socially disadvantaged producers, to educate other farmers about USDA programs as a whole, and also communicate back to USDA about the needs of those producers. So through the pilot, we are currently in, again, I want to make sure I get these right. We have an office in Portland, Oregon, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Cleveland, Ohio, Richmond, Virginia, Philadelphia, Minneapolis, Phoenix, Dallas, New Orleans, Atlanta, and St. Louis. And the pilot is continuing to expand. So we want to make sure this is on your radar of if you are working in those areas, that letting farmers know about this opportunity to become an urban COC member. The nomination period begins at the beginning of June, so we're updating our fact sheets and outreach materials as we speak, but I will share a link to our fact sheet that you can access online to learn more about the role of those urban county committee members and how to really share that information with the farmers you work with. But also, again, keep this on your radar because we are really working to make sure our programs and outreach materials reflect the needs of our urban farmers. We want to tell their stories. We want to make sure our programs are accessible to all of them. And we want you to really help advocate for us. We do have cooperative agreements that our outreach office provides as well to help FSA really share information with those farmers about how to apply to our programs, how to obtain a farm number so that, again, they could be eligible to participate in some of NRCS programs, for example, and get help with conservation assistance as well. So we're, again, really growing our role and our connection with these urban producers, recognizing that all farmers need assistance from FSA, and seeing how we can really help with farmers to grow and expand their farms, and also, again, kind of be that open door to connect them to other resources at USDA. So I can share a link in the chat to that resource for you. And if you have questions about the Urban County Committee pilot as a whole, I'm happy to share those. And I'm hopeful that Leslie Glover, when he speaks in just a few moments, will also share a little bit about how the Urban County Committee pilot and these urban service centers tie into the overall work that the Office of Urban Ag and Innovative Production is doing to support urban farmers across the country.
Thank you, Jenna. And with that, yeah, let's turn it over to Leslie and connect those dots there. Leslie, you available?
I am. Can you hear me okay? Can you see me on the screen?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. I'm going to share my screen if you don't mind. I think I'm disabled right now. Could you allow me to share? Okay, there we go. All right, so this is going to work out well. I was a little bit late. Sorry, I had to pick up a sick child from school, but I made it back just in time.
It's Leslie. Sorry, I'm going to stop you. We can see your presenter view and not the presentation slides.
Really? Okay, let's see. Let's try this one more time. Okay, wonderful. How about that? Is that better? Okay, I see a thumbs up.
Perfect.
Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are across the landscape. My name is Leslie Glover. I'm the program manager for the Office of Urban Ag and Innovative Production with the USDA. And today I briefly want to introduce our office, as Jenna has talked about, and just briefly talk about also some of the ways that we think that this council can really partner with us. So to start with, our office was created in the 2018 Farm Bill. But the office didn't actually get started in earnest until about 2020, when we finally started getting a little bit of staff in the office. This is the first time that the USDA has ever had an office that specifically focuses on urban and innovative production. A similar office had been signed into legislation previously, but it never actually got started. So we're first in many ways. Our office administers several authorities. But some of the main ones are Urban Ag and Innovative Production Competitive Grant Program. We also have a composting and food waste reduction cooperative agreements program. And we can also obviously provide links to you all for that. We're hoping that we get those out by the end of June. We've had a couple of delays here with some funding issues, trying to get additional funding, but hopefully we'll be able to wrap that up by June. We also have the urban and suburban county committees, which Jenna just mentioned, and those are in the counties with high concentration of urban and suburban farms. We're doing this pilot project with our sister agency, FSA, and they really have been instrumental in setting those offices up and getting that ball rolling. We also have the Federal Advisory Committee, which is made up of agricultural producers and representatives from all areas of the spectrum, including stuff like higher education, extension programs, nonprofits, business and economic development, supply chain, and also from the financing sector. Our office, again, is looking to establish some actual urban USDA service centers, though, in addition to all these other works, because we realize that in order to really have thriving urban and innovative farming communities, it's going to really require some additional USDA presence on the ground. And so, as Jenna mentioned, we are well underway with trying to create these urban, what we're calling urban service centers. We're going to establish those in the 11 cities that we already have urban and suburban county committees, but it's not going to end there. We're also looking to expand that We're hoping to have an additional 6 or so coming out maybe later this year, but even if we don't, we still will, moving forward, be looking for other opportunities to expand these offices, as well as the urban and suburban county committees. And then finally, we have the People's Garden Initiative that just launched last week. It was a pretty exciting ribbon cutting. The secretary was there, as well as some other high-ranking officials within the USDA. And this whole initiative is focused at supporting nonprofit organizations and community groups who operate food-producing gardens, with an eye towards educating the public, and also with an eye towards supporting local and regional food systems. And so you'll probably be hearing more about that as we move into that particular initiative. Right now, we have just the one at the national headquarters, but we're going to expand it beyond that as well. We also have another of other responsibilities. We manage programs for community gardens, urban farms, and indoor vertical production. We advise the secretary directly, as well as through the Federal Advisory Committee. We coordinate with agencies across the department and to help them try to update their programs and make them relevant for urban and innovative producers. We engage with stakeholders such as yourself and develop these external partnerships. We also identify common state and municipal best practices for trying to navigate some of the local permitting and zoning policies that we know can often be a challenge, particularly for urban producers. We also coordinate networks of community gardens and facilitate connections with local food banks. We do that with one of our sister agencies, the Farm Nutrition Service. And then we really look at a whole of government approach for trying to get this priority off the ground. So we work with the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We also work with the Environmental Protection Agency, as well as a few other government agencies. Here's a map. So this kind of shows you in real time the offices that Jenna mentioned. We have the 11 that we started out with, and we throw that up here because we just want the policy council to know that we're really interested in working on things that are mutually beneficial. And one way that we think we can do this is by connecting you folks with our grants and agreements recipients that are all across the country. We also want to be able to use you folks as a resource when our urban service centers get off the ground. We want to be able, since you folks are right there at the local level, you know what's going on, you have an ear to the ground. It would be really beneficial, I think, to us as well as to some of our recipients and other collaborators to be able to connect with you and to see what kind of resources you have available to create that synergistic effect across the board. We're also looking to allow you opportunity to present your ideas and strategy to strengthen the urban part of the local and regional food system. Again, USDA kind of got into this game a little bit later. You guys have been doing this for a while. We're certainly not under any misimpression that we know it all, so we're always willing to learn from folks who've been doing this for a while. We know that urban ag, innovative production, is not a new phenomenon, but one of the things we're really trying to focus in on is the fact that this urban thing seems to go in waves. It seems to emerge and reemerge as crisis and wars and things like that happen. But really, our office is keenly focused on trying to make sure that we can make urban agriculture a permanent structure within the agriculture ecosystem. And we think that we can do that through planning, through designing, through organizing with groups like yours, which is well known for its organizational capabilities. And so, yeah. So that's where we are, and we're hoping that if we can plant this seed with individuals, hopefully that will then move on to families, to communities, and up to the nation. And then the other thing, and then I'll wrap up with this one, is we understand that the Food Policy Council can help at the local level, which we think sometimes change is easier at the local level than rather than trying to change federal programs, which can frequently require an act of Congress to change. And so those are not usually easy, even though we are, working on tweaks that we can do at our level. A lot of these different programs were written into legislation by law. And in order to change them, they have to be done by law. And so we also recognize that a lot of those programs were never written with small scale innovation in mind. And so retrofitting some of those programs can be difficult. So with that, I'm going to be quiet. I will send you all the slide deck. We have a number of new websites that I think you all would be interested, including the one where you can go to learn about the grants and agreements that I spoke about, as well as being able to sign up for emails, updates as information comes out. Thank you for the opportunity and looking forward to collaborating with you folks moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Leslie. A lot of good points. And if folks have questions for Leslie, please throw them in the chat, and we hopefully we'll have a few minutes to get to them. We will now quickly turn it over to Joe Heller, also from NRCS, to talk about that other program opportunity. Joe?
Great, and thank you. I was hoping, Alex, you might be able to put up my presentation, but if not, I could certainly just talk here. Okay, great. So I'll just do my quick introduction. So I'm Joe Heller with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and I work in the Division of Outreach and Partnerships. And I'm here to talk to you today about the Equity and Conservation Outreach Collaborative Agreements or Cooperative Agreements. And the two words that are in the name and the title of the agreement really stand true to the work that we're looking to focus on, which is outreach to historically underserved producers and ranchers, farmers and ranchers, as well as the communities that may not have typically had the opportunity to work with NRCS. So again, the goal is for us to work in collaboration. So it's a partnership between NRCS, the staff, as well as the partners that are going to help us deliver conservation. If you could just jump to the next slide, Alex, that'd be great. Deliver our conservation message and mission. I'm sorry, back one, if you to the following historically underserved groups: beginning farmers and ranchers, limited resources farmers and ranchers, socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers, which include the following groups: African American, Black, American Indian, Alaskan, Native, Asian, Hispanic, Pacific Islander, and veterans. Now, while these groups are typically the historically underserved that we're looking to reach, we often find that there are communities in persistent poverty that, whether it's rural or urban, that really haven't had an opportunity to learn about the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the work we do to provide assistance to producers to conserve their land in a way that is economically viable, as well as protect our natural resources and our environment. Next slide, Alex. So as I mentioned, the priorities are to identify groups that not only carry out outreach, but also work very closely on engagement. So I think it's really distinct to understand the difference between the two and to try to really work with organizations and partners that make that one-on-one connection to better understand the needs of producers, to be able to relay who their local representatives are for the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And as Leslie had mentioned, we're trying to make an impact across the nation as NRCS and the Office of Urban Agriculture to connect with communities that may not have had the opportunity to receive federal resources or to understand the resources that may be available to them. So in 2022, you can see we had a variety of objectives and priorities that we were looking for. For 2023, we're anticipating this summer that we will have another announcement of similar funding, if not maybe just a little bit more. And when we take a look at things like climate resiliency, we're really looking at addressing some of those issues of drought or persistent, inconsistent weather patterns that affect our farmers and communities in ways that could disrupt the food supply. And perhaps there are things that we can do to ensure that those insecurities are addressed up front in some way. So Alex, if you go to the next slide. Some of the things that we're hoping that our partners will help us deliver on is to help producers improve soil health, taking a look at water quality and water quantity. We're seeing that some of our signature projects with irrigation really are supporting them in ways that help increase their yields of their crops, as well as taking a look at resiliency in terms of being able to support livestock operations. And one of the things that we're really looking to stress with our partners is to help provide that gateway and pathway to conservation planning. In order for our producers to receive conservation technical and financial assistance, the conservation planning phase is that real first step, which are helping identify the indicators of the issues on the farm and making that connection to NRCS staff to help them identify the technical resources that we can provide. And oftentimes everyone and the communities that we work with are looking for the financial resources, but oftentimes it may just be lending expertise, whether it's a soil scientist, an engineer, or other NRCS staff, biologists that can help them improve the conditions of their farm, or just to have a better understanding of the landscape that they have. Another topic that we're looking to explore in these agreements is how we can create pathways to careers in agriculture, and in particular, working with NRCS. So we have a variety of programs within NRCS that can incorporate volunteer work or actually getting student interns to come work through our programs successfully to build a relationship and a potential career in the future. Next slide, Alex. So this past year, we provided funding recommendations for 118 projects that totaled 50 million. We were in 44 states. We had 3 proposals with national impact, which covered multiple states, and 10 proposals that were solely for urban ag, totaling $2.7 million. And we established 85 new outreach partners and continued the great success and work of 33 outreach partnerships that we currently work with. Next slide, Alex. This is just a profile, and it's very small on my screen, of the beneficiaries, but you can see where the socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers captured the largest portion of the work. And we're really excited about being able to reach these folks through a variety of activities, whether they're workshops and demonstrations on farms, or simply just education and training, whether it's at the high school or college level, and introducing people to what USDA NRCS does and ways that they can protect their land and environment. Next slide. And this is just another snapshot of those socially disadvantaged groups. And certainly, you know, we would like to have seen a greater number of applications in Asian communities, but certainly it's something we're going to realize and recognize that we need to do a better job of ensuring that the applicants and the recipients of this award are addressing these shortfalls. I believe this is the last slide, and I want to thank you all. And I will put my contact information in this chat box for any communications that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, for taking the time. I think Joe has to run, but we can pass those questions to him if folks have them, and we'll make sure they get an answer.
Thank you, Alex and team.
Well, and on that thread of equity and justice, last but not least is the Deputy Director of the Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement to talk about the 2501 program.
Good afternoon, everyone. If you can hear me, if I can get a thumbs up. Okay, wonderful. Thank you all for allowing me to be here today. And thank you, Alex, for putting on such a great event. I know I'm in the home stretch here, so I won't go much more beyond my time, but I did have a few slides I wanted to share with you about the 2501 program. Dr. Ramírez alluded to earlier that this is our flagship outreach program across the department, and we collaborate on outreach across the country so that organizations such as those that are partners with us in nonprofit industry, higher education institutions, veterans, youth, and what have you, that we have projects that show and indicate the needs in those communities and how our programs across USDA meets those needs in those communities. The technical title for our program is Outreach and Assistance for Socially Disadvantaged and Veteran Farmers and Ranchers. This is our competitive grant program where we provide technical assistance and training, education for those socially disadvantaged and veteran farmers and ranchers at the grassroots level. And the goal is to increase access to and awareness of USDA's programs so that we can increase participation And that's also assisting them in operating sustainable farming operations, because we all know anyone can start a farm, but a sustainable operation is more impactful on that community. Recipients of the program must be a nonprofit or non-governmental organizations, nonprofits, community-based organizations, tribal organizations, those with 501c3 status. Also, our higher education institutions, which are mostly our land-grant universities, our 1890 historically Black colleges and universities, and our 1994 tribal colleges and universities, as well as our Hispanic serving institutions. And we do have a other category we fund, not as many grants, but for those projects that are really heavily based in agriculture, but they're not in land grant use in institution, and they're not a nonprofit with a 501c3. We provide just a small funding opportunity for those to make sure that, you know, some communities that may not have access to those nonprofits and land grants still have an opportunity to participate in our programs. We give priority to our non-governmental and community-based organizations by giving additional points. We give 5 points on the applications, as well as the bulk of the funding is provided to those non-governmental community-based organizations. Just as Leslie mentioned, our socially disadvantaged definition is African American, American Indians or Alaska Natives, Asian or Pacific Islanders, Hispanics, and women are not considered socially disadvantaged unless they are part of one of those groups. If they're veterans, of course, they are eligible beneficiaries. So the program is not for individuals, but groups and organizations that serve these groups. Also, veterans. Veteran farmer is basically if you have a DD 214 that shows that you have not been dishonorably discharged, you are eligible for benefits under this program. And for this year, we have unprecedented funding. Ladies and gentlemen, we have $37 million that we will be providing. The opportunity is on grants.gov as we speak. The expiration or deadline to apply is midnight on June the 8th. And we're very excited because this year we had the injection of $17 million in stimulus funding. And so that has placed us in a position where we have unprecedented funding. In next fiscal year, we will reach our $25 million in permanent funding. And so any additional funding we will also have under the COVID provision, in addition to that $25 million that's yet to be determined. What makes this program so highly competitive is that there's no matching fund requirement. That's almost unheard of when it comes to grants. So it's just the sensitive nature and the fact that we are serving socially disadvantaged groups, that it's kind of one of those perks where we understand the challenges and barriers that they face. Some of these nonprofits, you know, they're not these large international nonprofits, but rather, you know, kind of like a small 2-3 person organization sometimes. So they may not have the capacity to compete with the larger organizations. For this fiscal year, the maximum grant is $250,000 per year up to 3 years, which would equate to $750,000. So it has to be a 3-year term. We're no longer providing 1- and 2-year grants. And we just closed our solicitation for peer reviews. We were looking for peer reviews because that is a requirement that the 2018 Farm Bill provided for, as well as that priority that I mentioned earlier. And geographical diversity is at the top of our list of priorities when making these funding opportunities. And stakeholder feedback, as I mentioned earlier during this call, stakeholder feedback is very important because we're always striving to increase our footprint and enhance the program so that we can better serve those that are working as our partners. And this year we will host an annual symposium. It will be in San Antonio, Texas. We'll make sure that you all are getting the information hot off the press as soon as it's released. Just a couple points here. Just wanted to, if you haven't already and you're planning to apply for some of these programs that me and my colleagues are discussing today, you want to make sure you register on grants.gov and also sam.gov. Sometimes it's not an overnight process, and it could be the difference between you being funded for your organization or not. So of course, the Acrobat, most of those excuse me, grant programs, including the 2501 program, they must be submitted through PDF files. Of course, our high-speed connection, make a quick plug here for our affordability connectivity program that was just released from the White House. High-speed internet may be required. So that program is very essential to those that are in rural areas to be able to compete. The independent review panel is basically another provision in the 2018 Farm Bill. Make sure that we have a fair and unbiased process when we're making grant decisions and funding decisions. And the reviewers are actually made up of the applicant peers. So as long as those applicants are not applying for that fiscal year, they are eligible to serve on the committee. They submit an application, and of course, everything is completely confidential. And of course, as always, with government proposals, the contents are always subject to FOIA, however, not the identity of those reviewers. And yes, honorariums are provided. We do compensate when we have in-person reviews. We also cover travel and hotel expenses. And here is just some resources. I did place our link in the chat. You're able to view funded projects that we have historically provided grants to. And those funded projects are a good source of information where you can even reach out to some of these partners and see if there's something that you can maybe even help them with on their grant. You can lend them your expertise. And then also we have a library of programs and projects always at farmanswers.org. We also have the farmers.gov, and grants.gov is very important. There's a lot of tools, webinars, recorded information there that can assist you through the process. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention our USDA liaisons that are in the field across the country. Many are stationed on the land-grant universities. We have a few on our Hispanic serving institutions that are available to assist you as well. They serve as a connector between our stakeholders and USDA locally, as well as from the orders position. And I won't go into great detail about our advisory committees. Dr. Ramírez alluded to these earlier today. These advisory committees, one is for the minority farmers and ranchers, and one is the beginning farmers and ranchers. We will be seeking members. So if you have any relevant information, experience that you'd like to assist the USDA in making programmatic decisions that impact those that we serve, impact the farmers, being a voice and making sure that we're aware of those sensitive, unique barriers or challenges that are being faced when we're making programmatic decisions. So please consider, if not joining on one of the advisory committees, just providing input so that we can make sure that our policymaking team in the Office of the Secretary is aware of some of those unique challenges. And that's for both the Minority Farmers Committee and the Beginning Farmers and Ranchers Committee. Both advertisements for new members will be posted on the federalregister.gov website. And if you're interested in just seeing some of the work that they've done, there's a link at the bottom. That last bullet will show our advisory committees, what they're doing. They will be posting upcoming meetings once they are formed. So you have a lot of information there. Bill Ashton, who was on the phone, on the line earlier, you heard from him, is our military veteran agricultural liaison. And he works very closely with this program because we want to make sure that we have the military veteran perspective into outreach and making sure they have a conduit to get to any of USDA's programs and services that specifically address the needs of our veterans. And his address is there at that last bullet, bill.ashton@usda.gov. And the last bullet is our contact information. If you'd like to reach anyone on our grant staff, it's 2501grants@usda.gov. Then we have our website and our phone number. I will caution you that we're still mostly working virtually, so the email will be the best way to contact the staff. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Alex. And thank you all for having me here.
Thank you, Kenya. Lots of great information about that program. I believe the deadline was June 8th and no match required, so it is a good opportunity, and just want to give a plug for that. It funds a lot of activities that can support, local and regional food systems, as long as it benefits socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. So for example, with AMS, it's focused on marketing, but with this grant, you can do things like marketing, but also high tunnels, implementing conservation programs or training for beginning farmers and ranchers. It's a bit more diverse, I guess. And those committees are a great way to provide feedback as well at some of the comments you all previously made earlier. So I want to be cognizant of time. I know we're close here. We just want to say thank you, and again want to strengthen this partnership. So I hope you all will be hearing from us here soon, and want to offer just a quick opportunity for anyone else on my team to say any remarks. If not, I'll turn it back over to Dario.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Alex, and everyone else from USDA who spoke and shared. This is a time for, well, actually, I think I want to pass it off now to Karen, who's going to tell us what our next steps will be.
Thank you, Dario. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Dr. Ramírez, and everyone else from USDA for joining us this afternoon. Unfortunately, we're about at time. So I know that there's been a lot of information that's been posted in the chat. And so we will share the chat and all of the links with everyone that registered so that you can access these great resources, find out more information. If you have questions, have email addresses to contact folks as well. And then we are recording this session also, and we'll share the recording with everyone so that you can be reminded of the information that was shared today. So again, thank you all. Thank you for joining with us. And thank you to Alex for coordinating this event with us. And we hope to have offer other opportunities to learn more about other USDA programs in the future.
Alex, I'm going to jump in there, and thank you very much, Karen, there. This is quick. This is Bill Ashton here, and there's a couple of things. One is Kenya talked about the internet that was just announced by the president. I put the link on how you can, in the chat, on how you could apply to get that internet in areas there. And it explains everything, and it's actually in 2 languages, English and Spanish. And the last thing I wanted to share with everyone is, we're up here at the policy level and people hear things from us, and, we think we live in utopia and we don't understand what's happening on the ground. But the truth of the matter is the best thing that any of you can do is build a relationship with our local offices. They're the ones down on the ground. They're the ones that are going to work with you and help you in doing that. And really, all of that is free. One of the things Joe Heller was talking about, how NRCS wants to help people and they have these different programs. Well, they can come out and, they go to high schools and everything like that. So I just, really push that people meet with the local USDA offices and build that relationship there. Anytime I give a brief, I always tell them the same thing and say, don't go telling that local office, well, I was talking to Bill Ashton up there in Washington, and he seems to think that he knows everything. And ain't happening. So please work with our local offices. And thank you all very much for participating today. It was a great meeting, and we look forward to continue working with you all. Thank you, Karen.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate that. And if you don't know who your local contact is, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll help to get you connected with Alex, or you can reach out to Alex directly, and they can help you to get connected with your local offices as well. So thank you again, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.